right. Welcome everyone to the last stream of the season. It's been an incredible ride, but we're kind of ending with an incredible bang. One of my absolute favorite musicians in the world is joining us today, the one and only Mr. Doug Weiss at the bass. Doug, it's so great to have you.
Great to be here.
Playing with us is Marc Michel at the drums. We open with a song called Someday My Prince Will Come. For the least of my knowledge, Doug played this a lot with both Hal Foster as well as Kevin Hayes trio, right? Correct?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to continue with Joe Henderson's Inner Urge.
I'll let you count it off, sir. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1.
The next one is Dizzy Gillespie's called Alma. We're gonna kind of borrow an arrangement by one of my mentors, friends, and heroes, the great Peter Bernstein, with whom Doug has played for 30 years. We're looking at.
Well, for something like that, yeah.
20-something?
I'm not sure that all
They've recorded prolifically over the years in quartets and different configurations. And but for me, the one that stands out is an album called Monk, with Bill Stewart joining him on drums, which for me is one of the top, maybe two, maybe three, maybe the top guitar trios of all time for me. I mean, just an incredible album. And this is an arrangement by Pete Bernstein called Alma. ask a few questions.
Okay.
From
Excellent.
when I mean you play with so many different cats from so many different generations. I mean, I think you recorded trio with Peter Bernstein, with Mike Marino, and you recorded with Al Foster as well as Bill Stewart, people from very different styles and genres. And from, I mean, what's the bass player's perspective when moving from a Bill Stewart gig to an Al Foster gig, which I know you sometimes you did on the same day? I mean, do you change the beat to where?
I don't think so. I think that I bring myself to those situations, and I just try to show up and be present as I can be. And I mean, certainly the way that Bill places the beat is going to be a little bit different than maybe someone like Al from Al's generation.
Do you feel
but I grew up with Bill, so Bill and I were like kind of, you know, I mean, he was a little ahead of me in school, like in terms of his development. But we played together a lot growing up. I mean, like I was probably 18 or 19 when I met him.
That's in Patterson?
Yeah, we were in Patterson College, and you know, so I kind of grew up thinking that's what's supposed to happen between bass and drummers. That's the way it is, right? So he kind of spoiled me. But I've been lucky with drummers. I've had a lot of good associations and
Who are
meetings.
some favorites for you to play with?
Well, like, I mean, Bill, of course, and Brian Blade. I'm working on a project that he's leading now called Life Cycles. And Al, for many years.
How many years are we talking about, Al?
Probably 22, 23
what was
years.
the first contact? I mean, when was the first time that you got either heard you or want to play with you? Or
Well, I'd say the first contact was when I heard him. I was 16. I went to hear Miles Davis. And
That
Al was
band.
playing drums. And I knew it was Al Foster because his name was on the bass drum. He had his name written on the drums.
And the cymbals are this high.
And his cymbals were high. And then I saw him the same year. I think I saw him in Chicago at the Jazz Festival with Sonny Rollins, and I thought, wow, this guy's got all the gigs. You know? And so I mean, it was one of those kind of weird things. Like, I never thought I'll be like his friend or play with him or anything. But I went to college and graduated, and I got called by Chris Potter to make a record for I think it was for Crisscross in 1995, and Al was on the date. He didn't make it to the rehearsal. He was indisposed, so we rehearsed just with Kevin Hayes and Chris Potter.
So Chris played drums?
Chris played some drums.
You know that story that he gave Billy Hart a demo for that recording that they did?
Oh, he played drums on it?
And he plays drums on, and Billy goes, why don't you just use the guy that sound
God,
sound great on the
sounds
tape?
killing.
And Chris goes, oh, that's me playing drums.
Doesn't surprise me at all. He also plays guitar, by the way.
Yeah, great.
So, you know, Chris is, I've known Chris actually since he was 14, so we go back too. But I haven't had the chance to play with him as much as I would like. But he was actually in Al's band at first, too, the first tour that we did. So anyway, that's how I met Al. Like on the record date, he showed up, and he was, you know, it felt good right away. Like, kind of, we had a rapport.
And then one day the phone rings?
One day, no, he actually asked me for my number at that point, and then he mentioned that he might have a tour. And so the word had gotten out, and then I got a call to do a trio gig with him, with Chris, at this place called the Parkside Lounge, which is on Houston Street and Avenue C or something. It's just kind of a bar, you know. And so we set up. I got there early. We set up and played, and actually the first tune he called was Footprints. So I started playing, right? I started playing the bass line, and he said, "That's not Footprints." And I was like, I'm pretty sure it is Footprints. And then Chris turned around and said, "No, I think he means ESP." And I was like, "Phew, good thing I know ESP also," you know. So that was funny. The first couple of notes were like, "No, what the hell is that?" But then after the first set, I mean, I was looking up and I was seeing all the bass players in New York at the bar. Wow. Quite a few people were there because the word was out that Al was going to form a band, you know, and he had never really had a working band or touring band before. So I went to the bar on the break, and it went pretty well. You know, Al was like, "Yeah, you play good notes." So he liked what I was doing, and I knew that it felt good to me. So when somebody asked to sit in, I said no. I was like, no, this is my gig. I may never happen again. I hope you understand. And guys like, oh, a little crusty, but not. I mean, you got to understand. I mean, you get an opportunity to play with someone like Al. So anyway, yeah, I mean, we've been working together since then. We just played actually last weekend in New York, which was great fun. I hadn't seen him in 2 years because of the pandemic.
Yeah, pandemic.
So we hadn't spoken on the phone. We hadn't, which is very rare actually. But it was great to see him, and musically it felt like a big, hug and a big, warm homecoming to a place that I knew very well. And one of the things we developed, like something that happened on that last tune on your bridge, you kind of went for a double time thing, and I sometimes just go for it. We just go in there, and it was like, that's something that I came up with, I mean, by listening to Ron and Tony and Herbie for sure, and the record Footprints from Miles Smiles, and then just doing it, having it happen with Bill a few times, and having it happen with Al, and then, so we just had sort of decided that all rhythms are possible. Anything, you can make that jump not that you have to do it every time either. And in fact, sometimes it's cool if I go and if the drummer stays home.
Yeah, drummer stays there. Yeah,
or vice versa. That's something that Bill and I used to work on in the practice room back in our early.
The college days.
Yeah, early college days. Like he would say, "Why don't you play double time and I'll play half time, and then we'll switch." And we just to see what that felt like to do it. And to get experience like that.
I'm playing a lot with Charlie Persip, and we would always go. We were young. We would always go to double time, and he would just stay there.
Yeah.
And he said it doesn't need anything.
Right.
It doesn't need to overdo anything. I mean,
right.
You don't have to, which was a lesson that it took me a few years to kind of get.
Yeah, that can work too. It can definitely. I mean, I just like I like rhythmic.
Freedom.
Yeah. Well, there's just like interest. I like it when it's interesting, and I like when interesting things happen. And one of the things, I was just talking to Samuel Hell, the pianist, about this the other day. One of the things that can kind of kill the grooves if everyone is on the same groove. Maybe I shouldn't have gone fast. Anyway. No, but what can happen, actually we're talking about harmony, like more of the harmonic rhythm of a song. If everyone's playing exactly the same changes and exactly the same, like say substitutions, it can be kind of cool. It can sound hip sometimes, but sometimes it's that can also sound like a little.
It takes a lot of the mysterious aspects.
Yeah, you lose some of the mystery.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So I mean, don't hate on me, people that like to do that. I can do that too. Okay, I can do the half step 2 5s, and yeah. Anyway, so yeah.
Let's play another one.
Let's play another one. Yeah.
This is FIFA for Fun by Wayne Shorter. next one is another one that I think Al plays a lot. This is called "You Don't Know What Love Is." It's one of it's kind of a staple of the jazz repertoire, and I'd really love to hear your take on. You're one of those guys who still went through the all ranks of learning all the songs by ear, learning all the songs, learning the lyrics, which I think is starting to be a lost art. There was a minute in New York I remember coming as a teenager, and I would kind of chase Pete down and a lot of other people, and I remember that they would always be on my case, especially Peter and Russell Malone, of learn tunes, let a lot of tunes, because if you know a lot of tunes, you could play with vocalists and you could play with instrumentalists, and you really have a way of understanding this culture, the jazz culture. And I would love to hear what's your point of view on this, and what's your journey been in it. And
yeah, I like songs. For a few years at Purchase College, I taught a class in repertoire, which was really fun for me because, and actually I got kind of inspired by Mike Moreno. He has a class in that he gives online, I think now, but maybe also he's teaching it at a few universities. Should be anyway, but he's teaching a class on songs for film, like songs that were first heard in Hollywood films in the 30s and 40s. And it's great because you get sort of to hear and get some background information on like the original version of Stella by Starlight.
And I remember playing some of these songs with Buster Williams, and I would think I have the changes. Tell me, no, it's the wrong changes. I mean, the jazz changes, the jazz harmony of things is not always the correct harmony to the song.
Yeah, Buster is the kind of guy too that since he played with Sarah and quite some other vocalists in his career, he would definitely have been pretty deep into the the actual like source material. And that's something that I got into with when I was roommates with Pete actually in 1990. We moved to New York. I moved to New York and shared an apartment with him. And mostly what we did was work on songs together. We played tunes. We'd decide like what chords we liked of the original recording, of the original. Actually, we didn't have access to the original recording. There was no internet back then. We would have sheet music. Actually, we had it on paper, and Pete would sit at the piano, and then we just kind of like hash it out and see what, maybe we'd have a couple of more modern recordings of meaning recordings from the 60s and of our heroes playing these songs, and so we'd kind of see how like someone like Sonny Clark would handle a song versus how like Herbie would handle it, or Duke Pearson or something, and everyone kind of had a different idea, to some extent. Like any recording of one of those songs, I think that's one of the beautiful things about it is they're quite malleable, in terms of the structure. You can really, and it's something I really got deep into with Kevin actually when we played trio.
Yeah, that's some heavy repertoire.
We would often like be reharmonizing a song on the fly, like every time we played it. Like Kevin really had not so much interest in wanting to play it the same every night. He was really a go for it, and still is a very just kind of like let's try and see what happens kind of guy. So sometimes we'd modulate keys. We'd go to a different key in the middle of on the bridge or something, or we'd hear our way into some different harmonic areas using pedals, or using trying the fifth in the bass, or and some of it came from Kevin, some of it came from me. We were just kind of really listening a lot, and but then only like more, I think within the last 10 years I've been actually going back more to the source material and just kind of checking out the original version. And one thing that Pete mentioned when we were just on tour, he mentioned one of the activities that he assigns to his students is just play the melody for an hour, which is as an idea for a practice, I think is great, because the melody is the melody, but then how you play it, how you choose to present that melody, gives you sort of an inside track into your own musical identity, and that little golden thread that they talk about. Like you kind of need to start looking for that as a young player, like look for a way like to to find out what your personal opinion about how the song should be presented is. You know, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I also think that since the goal is to play for people, for live people, and I think for for regular audiences, not the jazz students or fellow musicians, I think the thing that they take out, what really sits with them is the song itself.
Yeah.
I mean, and the modern way of playing the song for a minute in the beginning and a minute in the end, and then 25 minutes of solos in between, it doesn't always work for. I mean, as soon as you play at venues that are for people who are not the jazz hardcore audiences, they really appreciate the songs.
Yeah. Well, it depends on. I mean, if you're going to play a 25-minute solo, it better be a killing solo. You know, and if it's a great solo, I mean, there's certain people I could listen to, you know.
Give me some examples that are favorites. I mean,
well, you can listen to Mark Turner or Chris Potter, or Seamus Blake, or Bill McHenry, or gosh, I'm going to miss somebody, and some tenor player is going to be mad. Ellie DeGibri. You could listen to like any of those. Maybe there's 5 that I just named. There's certainly many more. Grant Stewart. There's so many great saxophone players. If I just think about tenor players and how they might play on a song like Erigen by Sonny Rollins. I mean, I could really dig hearing them stretch out, and I love just to play, you know, like epic version of a song like that with someone that's really great, you know, and would have someone like Al or Bill or Billy Hart or Brian or Jeff Williams or, you know, any of the great drummers. There's more, you know, Anthony Pinciati. There's some great Matt Wilson. Sorry, once I start naming cats, I'm gonna forget someone.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, you know what I mean. Like just I like to see what someone who's really a great improviser is gonna come up with from night to night, and so there's also moments in my definitely in my life where I'm totally down for that 25-minute long epic Odyssey type experience. But then, you know, but most of those, like all those people also will play the melody in such a way that it engages you and that it grabs you and that it interests you, and it's because they have spent time studying that and that's part of their practice, I believe. Anyway.
Let's give this a shot. I'm not going to play a 25-minute solo, but I'll do my best to play a nicer short one.
All right.
You Don't Know What Love Is.
Okay.
song? Or?
If ever I would leave you,
Oh, yeah.
we can leave people with that.
So the last song is a special one for me. I got the first jazz album that I ever got mad about was Sonny Rollins' The Bridge.
Mad about.
So
Got crazy about.
got crazy about.
That kind of mad. Not like I'm so mad. You guys sound too good.
Well,
I've had records like that. I'm
But,
like, oh man, you guys did that before I did.
Illegal.
It's not cool, man.
To sound that good.
and I mean, I just became the greatest hardcore Jim Hall fan. And when I moved to New York, I tried to, I would kind of chase him around. And then one day I realized that he walks his dog at a certain hour in the morning.
Oh yeah, in
And
the
I
West Village somewhere.
Yeah, and I would go and I would run into him by chance, and we developed
With
this
your guitar on
friendship
your
thing.
back?
Exactly. I just happened to be with my guitar at 7:30 in the morning,
Yeah, right.
and one of the songs that I got to play for him was this song, and he told me that he loved the song when he recorded it with Sonny Rollins, and the first thing he said, I think I played it out of tune. Which is a very Jim Hall thing to say, but
Yeah, right.
you recorded this with Kevin Hayes and just an incredible version with that trio that you have with Kevin and Bill Stewart.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess that's true.
Uh,
We used to play that a lot on tour. That was
This tune?
that was one of the ones that also harmonically kind of evolved over the years with Kevin and
I think Kevin is always changing harmony in such a brilliant way on a night-to-night basis.
yeah.
it's,
No, it's cool. You got to be on your toes if you. Yeah, I remember. A few years ago, a mutual friend of ours, bass player from Israel, Barak Mori, great Barak Mori,
He says hello, by the way.
Yeah, great. He had his first opportunity to play with Kevin, and he called me up and he said, "Man, I'm nervous. What do I do?" And I said, "Yeah, just stay home. Just stay home and enjoy listening, and not having to worry about whether because Kevin will go, and you can and actually in a way, one of the things I learned through playing with him and maybe Mark Copeland also and Sullivan Fortner now is that and Adam Birnbaum is that sometimes it's cool, like if the pianist is stretching the harmony and kind of taking it somewhere else, sometimes it's cool a lot of times it's cool for the bass player just to kind of stay home. Again, it's that sort of study in contrast, and it depends on when you need tension in the music, and sometimes the tension is of the pianist sort of gently, or maybe not even that gently, like going against the grain harmonically, or I think Brad Meldau was kind of a master of that too.
That Brad, with whom we always also work with, that he kind of got something from Kevin and was a minute before him on the scene of reharmonizing things in a specific way that comes from Herbie Hancock in a way, but they kind of put it into the modern language.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I know that Kevin and Brad knew each other like basically since they were 16. They knew about each other, and I know that they're both, they both kind of hit the scene around the same time. The difference was that Kevin was actually before all of us in New York, before any people from my generation. He was on the road with like Benny Golson and people like that when he was, just really young, and we were all playing at Augie's, and Kevin would be like, "Oh, I can't make it. I got to go. I got this gig with Buster Williams somewhere." You know what I mean? So he was kind of working with some of the elder generation of players early on, in a way that maybe Brad did some of that later in his career. I mean, he certainly played with Lee Konitz, and he recorded with
Charlie
Wayne
Hayden,
and Charlie Hayden and Paul Motion. But like Brad's thing was, he developed into a band leader quite early on. So he was calling the shots a lot of times, and it was, it's great opportunity for him to do so. And
I wanted to get your perspective and feedback on what is it like. What was it like to get this hands-on experience from the 1, 2, 3 generations before you? Because I think that one of the reasons why I'm going to spend a lot more time in New York next year is because I feel that those opportunities that I got when I was there for the 10 years I was there were to get a certain time feel and a certain sense of melody and a certain sense of what the music is like culturally, that might be kind of disappearing as people just learn from at schools. And I would love to hear your perspective on this.
Well, I think, okay, Dekel, I think it's really smart for you to do that, because, you know, there's not that much time left, unfortunately, and it's sadly, as we've seen in the pandemic, and Barry Harris just passed away a couple weeks ago. Like
I think his wake is today. I think the funeral is today.
Oh yeah, so. And Barry, of course, was one of the great musicians of our time, and one of the great educators too. He really took that seriously. He really passionately wanted to show people how to do it, and why to do it, but mainly how to phrase, how to sound good. And I think that my thing coming into a situation playing with someone like Billy Hart, or with
Victor Lewis,
or Victor, like I played with Victor quite a bit, with Eddie Henderson, played Eddie Henderson band, and playing with Al, playing with people of that generation, and George Coleman. You first of all, you rhythmically want to be in a place where you're not gonna throw a wrench into the works, so to speak. So I'm very much there, knowing that I'm an invited guest of these African American men that went through a much different upbringing and much different, type of childhood than I did. So I come in with quite, I would say, a bit of deference and awareness of that situation. And I mean, one of the people that really helped me along the lines early on was a pianist by the name of Norman Simmons, who gave me my first basically professional break, which was with Joe Williams. I went to Japan with Joe in 1991, and he just he just talked me through it.
What was it like working with Joe Williams?
Oh, it was great. It was like working with a great horn player. He had a great repertoire. The songs were amazing, and sometimes, and it happened to me several times on this trip. We were there for 3 weeks. He would just call a tune that I didn't know and count it off. He'd say, "Too marvelous for words," in the key of D flat. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, like fishing expedition, looking at Norman, like trying to like my ears, So those kind of experiences, and actually, great thing that happened on the first gig. It was a tux. We had to wear tuxedos, right? So I showed up, and I had a tuxedo that I had left on the floor of my closet. I don't even own a tuxedo. Well, you can't do that gig then. But and they actually let me know the day before. So I said, "Hey, listen, I didn't realize. So I'm gonna have to. I'm bringing my tux, but it's a little worse for the wear." So anyway, I brought this tux, and he kind of looked me up and down. And I sat down on the couch. Joe looked me up and down, and I sat down, and I had like, not white socks, but some kind of light gray socks.
Wow.
He said, "Get yourself some black socks." And I said, "Now?" And he said, "Yeah, now." And so I ran out of that dressing room, and I'm like walking around Tokyo at like 7 o'clock in the evening. I had an hour to procure a pair of black socks. I didn't have any Japanese yen. I had like about $10 to my name, and I finally just gave up, and I just came back and I said, "I'm so sorry. Couldn't find anything. There wasn't anything open, but I'll have it together by tomorrow, I promise." And they were cracking up, because he was basically just having a good time. He knew that nobody was going to see my socks when I was standing up behind the bass.
Absolutely, yeah.
But the next day, I called the hotel room service or whatever, and I had them press my tuxedo and wash my shirt, and then I went and found some black socks. And I don't know if they even noticed, but it was just it was like a bit of a very light kind of having a little bit of fun at my expense. But it was also, it was a great learning experience, because I had to play songs that I didn't really know, and I was really trying not to screw up. That was my baseline, was if I got through the gig without having Joe turn around and look at me like, what are you doing? Or have Norman look at me like, come on, and I recorded all the gigs on my cassette player. Not all of them,
the mini disc players, remember those?
Listen, yeah, I didn't. This is pre-mini disc. I was on cassette tape. So those cassettes exist somewhere.
I used to have that same feeling of I'm just trying to make it through the tune, of playing Reggie Workman's gigs, and he would open with me playing duo kept playing Countdown super fast duo with the drummer. That's how we open.
Oh wow.
And I felt this big, yeah, every night.
No pressure.
Exactly.
With Coltrane's bass player. Well.
And you also worked with Pete Seeger, another legend. And Bernstein just hit me up, said, I didn't know that Doug played with Seeger.
Well, that was, worked with. It depends on that was actually my first experience recording remotely with someone who was not in the room.
Wow.
So unfortunately, fortunately, I was happy to be part of that project. It was a record called Tomorrow's Children. That was basically a children's record, a kids' record. There was a children's choir, and it was put together by this percussionist and friend of mine named Jeff Haynes.
Ah, he's great. I love
Jeff Haynes, who lives in Fishkill, New York, and he's now playing with Brandy Carlisle, I think. But we played together quite a bit with a singer named Liz Wright.
He played with a lot of singers.
Early
With Cassandra
2000s.
Wilson.
He was with Cassandra Wilson before that.
Had Pat Metheny stint, I think.
Was that?
Yeah, the thing with Pat Metheny for
That's
a minute.
true. He's got one of Pat's guitars, and so he's a great musician, and he's one of the first people that I knew personally that had like a really good home studio. He just bought the gear and figured out how to do it. And Pete Seeger befriended him for some reason. Just they got to know each other through some kind of a gig at a school, actually. So Pete would often stop by Jeff's house with his banjo. And just sit down, and Jeff would say, hey, he'd start telling a story or start playing something. Jeff would say, hey, man, do you mind if I record that? And Pete said, yeah, sure. So he'd record some stuff. So Jeff has hours and hours of tape of Pete telling stories, accompanying himself on the banjo. And then we would sort of create songs around that. And I'd always go in there, and Jeff would say, all right, Dougie, here's a song. He'd play it for me a couple of times, and I'd sometimes scratch down a few notes. And then I'd do a pass, and then he'd always say the same thing. Can you just do a simpler version, like so simple? And so sometimes I would go in knowing that, and I'd play like a lot of crap on the first time, just so I could play something on the tape.
Right.
Sorry, Jeff, that's what I did. But anyway, by the end, I'd play the most simple, and also that was also a great learning experience for me, because again, it was about not getting in Pete's way. And Pete also was, 90-something when he was doing this, so his voice was he was having a hard time singing. He made it happen, and rhythmically his songs were, he played the banjo so great, but it was almost like he didn't really need a band, but we were providing him with some more stuff. So I actually, I don't know if I ever got paid for any of those sessions. I think it was one of those things where I was like, I'll do it, but I want to meet Pete. And then the opportunity for that came, and I happened to be unable to attend. It was like a live, like they were giving him an award or something, and Jeff invited me, and I couldn't be there because I was going on tour. So that was it. I never got to actually meet the man, but I did see him one time in Beacon, New York, standing in the rain on the corner of like two busy intersections.
Legendary.
This is the beginning of the Gulf War. He's standing there in a rain poncho with a sign that said "Peace" on it, and he's a guy that he'd done his time.
Yeah.
But that really touched me.
Wow.
This is before Trump, before the craziness that we have now in America. This was just the beginning of the first Gulf War. He just said peace.
Wow.
That's it. So anyway, that was my experience with Pete Seeger. Was I wish it had been deeper. I wish I'd have been able to actually get to just greet him and touch his hand and tell him how much he meant to me and to my kids growing up.
Absolutely.
He was such a great
And to Peter
artist.
Bernstein.
Bernstein.
It was just a chance for me to say how much he means to me and how much I love him.
Yeah.
We're going to close the set. Doug, it's been so great having you. Really.
Thank you.
It's so
Thanks
great
for
to play
having
with
me,
you, to hang with you, hear
Mark
the
too.
stories.
Cooking.
At the drums, Marc Michel.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to Jazz Times Magazine for hosting this. Shure Microphones, Ropeadope Records, Category 5 amplifiers, Gibson and Ken McKay guitars, our amazing producer, Mackenzie, and everyone at Deep Green, MS Recording, who are hosting the session. If I'm forgetting someone, I love you. This is If Ever I Would Leave You. And speaking of songs, and speaking of Cassandra Wilson, there's an amazing version that she sings from where I got the lyrics. So
All right. Cool.
Make sure you check out that version. Check out Sonny Rollins with Jim Hall, and the incredible Kevin Hayes trio with Doug Weiss and Bill Stewart. So have happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you right after that. Michel the drums. The one and only Doug Weiss at the bass. I'm Dekel Bor. Thanks so much. Have a great holiday season. We'll see you next year.